my people, and if you're watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. Welcome to another episode of Botched and Chair Shots. I'm your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and joining me tonight is a guy been known for tearing up death matches for as long as death matches have been a thing. It feels like he is the mental messiah, Insane Lane. Lane, thanks for coming on, chat about some bread and some brother. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Excellent. I'm excited about this conversation. I've been curious about this side of the wrestling world for a while, so I'm super curious about it. So I always start my interviews though kind of the same way. How did you get into wrestling initially? When you decided, okay, I want to be a pro wrestler. Like, what was that process like for you?
Actually, it was I was working at a I had to silence my phone. I don't want to be interrupted. I was working at a video store. I just got out of the service, and I was in college and working at a video store in Alabama. And this local wrestler came in, and he asked me. He put up a flyer in our window. Me, my manager, and I, and another guy in there. We were huge wrestling fans. We were like, "Hell yeah, man, put it up there!" And we were started came up conversation with him, about we were wanting to be wrestlers and stuff, and we struck a deal up with him, and he basically got free movie rentals for the rest of his life. But he yeah, we went to started training in Athens, Alabama for a promoter named Alvin Wallace. He used to be a NWA affiliate a long time ago up there. But of course, he stopped paying. He stopped keeping up with the dudes. I guess when the NWA flopped over in the '90s, when WCW became WCW and whatnot. Yeah, he's that old kind of old that old of a promoter. He's no longer with us now though. But I got my start through his promotion. I was trained by some local wrestlers. One of them was Charlie Swinger. He was that guy who actually put up the flyers and stuff. He trained us, and he had a couple of other guys with him who were not as who were new to the business, but they worked with us too, and 2002 is when I made my debut, and I wasn't doing my any hardcore or anything of that. I was just doing, the stuff you saw on the television and stuff. Even though I knew of ECW, I watched ECW, and I knew the Japanese death matches and stuff. I loved what Cactus. I thought that stuff was awesome, but I knew that's, and I kind of mentioned those things, it's like, does anybody do hardcore stuff or whatever? Like, no, we don't do that around here. That's only for unless it's real important, which I understand perfectly fine. But yeah, I went out, made my debut as a traditional professional wrestler, and did that for a couple of years.
So when you broke into the business in the early 2000s, you're looking at a lot of like TNAs, your late the very end of the WCW run, WWE. What wrestling were you exposed to growing up before you broke into the business?
Well, first I was exposed to WWF, believe it or not. Even though I lived in the South, I first saw Hulk Hogan. That was the guy who really caught my eye. And then and then from there, my mom remarried my stepdad. He was a wrestling fan, a smart wrestling fan too. But before I even knew it was smart, he was smart, but I didn't know. He kept me in the. He tried to smarten me up, but I was like, "No, it's real, Dad." But anywho, he introduced. He's like, "Oh well," he said, He's a Hulk Hogan, yeah, whatever." He said, "You need to watch some of this," and he introduced me to NWA. Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, the Road Warriors, the Four Horsemen, them guys, the AWA, the Freebirds, the Von Erichs. I mean, I grew up with all that stuff, and I now learn about a little bit about Japan through the magazines, because that's why I'd see like Bruiser Brody and Abdullah the Butcher being all bloody and stuff, and they have those tapes for sale in the magazines called Matt Maniacs and Maniacs of the Ring and all that stuff. That stuff intrigued me, and and I grew up watching it all pretty much. I mean, there was a little time there where I took a break. I guess right around my teenage years, I went and pursued it. I went and played football, baseball, basketball, did all that stuff. But then I came back around to it, and then ECW came around, and then that shit was bonkers, and I didn't really get exposed very much to independent wrestling until I started in the independent wrestling business, because other than that, that's the only wrestling I knew. I didn't know about all the CZWs and stuff like that. I kind of learned that right when I was just getting my training and right around that time. So now I was like, wow, there's more, and we're like, yes, I was like, oh, this is cool, so yeah.
As a wrestling fan, it seems wild when people are talk about they watch wrestling and then what do you watch? And it's WWE. And then I try to explain to them the vast world that is indie wrestling. And
Mhm.
I liken it a lot, and we'll get to this part of the conversation, like IWTV or something like that. I'm like, it's Netflix for wrestling. Like, do you feel like watching a death match today? Do you feel like watching good Southern wrestling today? Do you want to watch tag team specialists? And that's what I like about something like that is you see it in the American independent scene a lot. Is just the sheer amount of wrestling you get to see, like all the different types now. And it seems like you can kind of pick and choose whatever you want to watch. But specifically, when you started training and you broke into the business, how did you go about becoming a hardcore specialist? I mean, you've worked with some. We'll start the conversation with IWA Deep South in the early 2000s. These guys have a notorious history for some of the more hardcore kind of things. What was it like when you started breaking into that scene for the first time?
Actually, it was actually pretty cool. It started off kind of crazy because the show they tried to do, that King of the Death match before it was called Carnage Cup, got shut down. And I've told the story 100 times. He was hiding in the bushes, paying people off as much as he could because people were wanting their money back and stuff, and he wanted to, and people he had booked a whole lot of people on that show, so that was a bad start. But then he was like, well, almost I'm gonna run it again. Well, I actually ran a promotion, helped run a promotion with my brother-in-law called Full Throttle Wrestling, and we had a building that he could use, and we kind of sweet talked the lady. She was a sweet lady. We said, oh, well, we promise we'll clean up and all this stuff, and she's like, okay, guys. She's just so, I don't know. We're like, trust us, just let's do it. So she allowed us to do it, and she ran it two more times there, but she said, no, y'all got to do it outside now. But Kevin got to run Carnage Cup, and it was cool for a while because at first Mike Burns was booking. He was the booker at the time, and so he was kind of, so if Kevin had some kind of crazy harebrained idea he wanted to do, which weren't that extreme then, they've kind of evolved over the years. But I don't know, up or down depending on your taste. But anywho, he, at least when if he had some kind of idea that someone might go like, no, Kevin, which I said a lot to him, no, Kevin. Burns would say, no, Kevin. So there was more quality shows. It was better ran, and it had better people in there. Well, as soon as Mike Burns left, Kevin was put to his own devices, and the matches, the people, the quality just kind of started going down. Yeah, he'll bring some decent people in there, but he'll bring some shitbags in there, or guys who are just shouldn't be doing those kind of things in the matches or in the stipulations he puts them in. And that's and that's my you know my experience with it. And that's why I kind of left it alone after that.
So in a hardcore style match, when you're building it up and you're getting ready to go into your story, in a traditional wrestling match, guys will say they call it in the ring. Do you feel in a death match setting you're calling it more in the ring, or do you guys plan your spots a little bit more? I don't want to expose it too much, but just curious about the planning process when you're building a story in a death match. How does that process start for you guys?
Honestly, man, and this is the truth. A lot of my matches, the best ones, man. I'll go over in 3 to 5 minutes is what we'll go over. I'll sit there and do elaborations like a lot of people do. We'll just sit there and kind of rub out, kind of do rub out beginning. Uh, use if we know what we're going to be using in the match, and kind of put in elaborate. We're going to give these spots for what we're going to do for that, and then call a finish. And I've always been a walker talker guy, or a walk and talk guy, or whatever you want to call it. So I've always liked to do it anyway because I can't remember a whole lot to begin with. So that works out better for me.
When you mentioned it before with some of your promoters you worked with, they said that some of this more hardcore stuff was more of a blow off moment when you build up to it. When you're building your stories and you have the opportunity to I look at it when I think about hardcore wrestling. It's like when you're painting a palette, and it's like you have an opportunity to do whatever you want. You can use whatever colors you want in this painting. You know what I mean? And that's the way I kind of look at hardcore deathmatch wrestling is their ability to do anything that they can. I don't want anything that you guys are comfortable doing for this show. When you're doing this, has there been a moment in your career yet where you were like, "Oh shit, I can't believe I just pulled that off"? Like, have you had one of those "oh shit" moments?
Yeah, actually, I have. I've had a couple recently, actually, because for the uh, I don't know, I just didn't didn't think I could do it for one reason or another, and it turned out like it just turned out better. I guess I just want what I'm trying to say is it turned out way better than I could have imagined. So I've had a couple of them. I've had one recently, Tournament of Death, the Shark Tooth home run derby. I mean, bad a match I had with Brad Cash. Man, we got to do the exploding barbed wire bat in there, which is something I've always wanted to do. And it was so cool. And so we did some really cool gnarly stuff. So and afterwards, I just kind of remember driving home, even though I was beat up and not feeling too good because I came down with a flu. I was like, I was like, man, he was like, man, I can't believe we pulled that off, man. That was crazy. It was better than imagine. So I've had some of those moments.
Um, Looking through your career a little bit, you've had a chance to work also with IWA Mid South. Ian Rotten has a both a notorious and infamous career inside of professional wrestling. What
Yes.
was your time like with IWA Mid South?
For what, for the most part, it was good because for the simple fact I got to meet some of the most amazing people in the whole wide world, and that's no lie, man. Because I mean, I've met fans, I've met colleagues who are wrestlers, announcers, managers, referees, people who helped at the ring, concession stand people. I mean, just I got to meet a great cutaway of people in America, over the years and stuff, and it's and so I'm thankful for IWA Mid South for giving me that opportunity. Now, and Ian, for the most part, I mean, he paid me. He never gave me a hit you next time, kid, but he did pay me. I can't bitch about that because there are people that didn't get paid. But yeah, did he fuck people over? Absolutely, he did. And it's sad because I had a long relationship with a business relationship with him. And he always called me, you're like my brother, man, and all that because we were the Bloody Brothers and stuff. So I mean, it was cool, but I mean, and it meant something to me but for him to do that to other people, I can't stand by that because they didn't deserve that. And then whether he took their money or took or promised them stuff, I mean, which he did a lot of us, me included, and didn't follow, just he just like I said, it is what it is. But I'm thankful for my time there, regardless.
So during this time, I have to ask the Taipei Death World series of glass match. John Wayne Murdoch, Satu Jin, defeated the Bloody Brothers 2.0. When you're going into a match that you know is going to be that violent, and I know it's just another version of another question I've already asked, like, what was that like, planning process wise, getting ready to go into that when you knew that that match was going to be turned up to 11 the entire time, all 12 minutes of it? It was just going to be nuts. What was it like going into that?
Exciting because I had just started back because I'd been gone for a while, so I had just started back to getting back to active competition, so or what have you, and I was real excited because for one, this is the Bloody Brothers thing, it's very close, something very close to me, and I was very happy to do it with JC and so, but I mean, we just, I don't know, man. It's like putting your socks on in the morning. You don't really, for when you work with guys like that, it's kind of just putting one foot forward and repeat, man, because they're just so damn good. And you just kind of lock up, and I mean, I'm serious. You can just kind of feel. I don't really have to say a whole lot. I mean, and like I said, well, I just kind of explained to you earlier about okay, we'll do this here, and this here, and fill in the blanks and go for the finish. All right, yeah, okay, good. Let's go out there, and then that's it. That's it. And those, yeah, that's basically how it is. I can't. I wish there was more to the story that I could tell you, but that's well, at least in my experience, it is.
I think that's cool though, because when you think about it, like I said earlier, I use the analogy that it's like you can pick whatever version of wrestling you want to watch. It's kind of refreshing to hear that though, to know that a lot of the planning and the processes that go into the matches are all still the same, you know? Like I say a lot of times we don't want to yuck anybody's yum. You know, like
Yeah.
deathmatch wrestling might be somebody's thing. I personally love it. I've recently become more of a fan of it. But do you think, looking at it from a perspective of the big picture, say an AEW style thing, when you look at somebody like Moxley, Moxley cut his teeth on the indies going through the deathmatch stuff. He got big, and now in AEW, a lot of people say one way or the other. It's too much blood, or he's not doing what he wants to do in his matches because of the AEW stuff. What do you think about the exposure people like Moxley are bringing onto the hardcore and the deathmatch scene for you guys? Like to have that exposure on such a grand level of somebody who's been the king of the deathmatch. You know, just recently he held world titles in GCW and CCW. So
I think it's great because for one, and get that when I first started doing deathmatch wrestling years and years and years ago, I was one of the I guess when I say pioneers of it, at least in the early middle ages of it, and and I was one of the I was definitely one of the first in the South. I was the one that's one of the one me, Tank, Freak Show, all of us. We were the ones that were Spider. We were the ones bringing it up here, and we caught a lot of flack, from the old school guys. Oh, that's garbage. That's trash. You don't know how to wrestle. People who do death matches can't wrestle. They can't work. They can't. They're untrained. Okay, well, there's several guys now that's made it up and been a world champion that's done a few. And so I mean, what do you guys say now? I mean, it's like I said, wrestling's a lot. I don't want to compare it to dancing, but I guess in the styles I will because I mean dancing you've got the samba, the salsa, the paso doble, you have all these different dances. Some people like the ballroom dancing, break dancing, whatever. There's all kinds of different dancing and people have their dancings. It's the same in wrestling. You got the lucha, you got the traditional, you got the European style, you got the hardcore, you have, you have all, you have death match, you have whatever, and everybody has that. So I mean, it's variety is the spice of life, man. So I mean, I'm all for guys like Jon Moxley being able to put a light on guys, the deathmatch community put credibility to guys, say like, hey, we're not just for the most of us, I can say we're not just a bunch of schlubs who just hit each other, reckless abandons. We don't know any better, you know.
One of my favorite things to ask is always, especially somebody like you who's traveled Tennessee, Indiana, North Carolina, you've been all over the Midwest and the American Southeast. What is the reception like when you go from territory to territory? Wrestling in Tennessee and then being in Indiana and then being in North Carolina. What's it like going from, market to market or territory to territory for you guys?
Well, if it's a no, I mean, it's pretty much the same because I mean, if you're a deathmatch fan, I mean, it's kind of like I'll compare it to music, like underground bands. They'll come travel, see the people. You might see the same fans. There's some new faces there too. It's kind of like going to a rock club or something and watching your favorite band play. So that's kind of like how I compare it to. You got them people who are like, oh shit, man, you're the man, you're awesome, and then you have, some people you've seen 100 times, and then you got some people come up to you and say, man, I've never seen you before, and thank you or whatever, and it's a lot. This style is a lot more was a lot more receptive up further up north, and down south it really wasn't. The kids liked it though, and they still do. It's starting to get a little more receptive for here in the south now because I guess because it's starting, it's everywhere. So, but I've always noticed the kids kind of the kids from the south up to the north love it, but the adults up north love it more than the adults in the south do. Especially the older adults. Older adults they can't stand it.
Do you get still in 2022 when you go and you work a death match? Do you still get a lot of heckling from the crowd? Do they still come at you guys hard every show?
I mean, they chew they cheer and boo just like everybody else. They'll say they like you. They'll tell you what you think. I mean, I don't really. I mean, I really couldn't tell you. I mean, as long as they're making noise, they're caring about what I'm doing, and that's all that matters.
All right, Lane. Well, I close all of my interviews with 5 rapid fire questions. I've got yours queued up, ready to go. You ready?
All right, yeah, let's go, man.
Who's your favorite musician or
Oh,
performing artist group? However you want to look at that question.
Hall and Oates.
Yeah. One of
Yeah,
the funniest thing about Hall and Oates, did you know there's a phone line that you can call that's
yeah,
called Call and Oates, and they let you listen to Hall and Oates songs on the phone?
yes. I also like Genesis.
Genesis
Big
is
Phil
a
Collins fan.
Phil
Big Phil
Collins
Collins.
is a beast musician.
Yes. So
Do
we'll
you have a
just go
favorite
that.
movie?
I'll say Highlander.
Also a good pick. What's your favorite food?
Boot chicken and dumplings.
That's a solid
Homemade.
pick. I'm a chef by trade and a mark by choice is my catchphrase. I spent 15 years in the restaurant industry cooking Southern comfort foods. So,
Oh yeah.
good Southern things like, the chicken and dumplings for sure. Do you have a favorite venue you've wrestled in?
A favorite venue? I like the ECW arena. That will probably always be one of the coolest. And the Tremont Music Hall in Charlotte was really neat too. That was cool. I've been to a few of them.
What was it like having a chance to wrestle in Philly for that crowd? Because that crowd is notorious. You talked about ECW earlier in the interview,
Well,
but
yeah, because I was at CZW there. I was at
yeah.
CZW too back then. Yeah, and I got to work there several times, and Ian worked there, did a show there too. And oh my gosh, man! I mean, it was wild because it was kind of like I never got to wrestle at the Sportatorium, so this was kind of like my way of being like, oh, cool, I got this cool wrestle in a little dinky ass building that's legendary, just like that one. So it was cool, man. I loved it. I had a that it was. I walked out. I was like, I watched Kimona Wanalea dance atop that scaffold building, or what, stuff like that. And oh, they rebuilt that. I was like, oh shit, never mind.
Last one. What is your favorite city you've wrestled in?
My favorite city. Oh man. I'm going through a lot of them. There's some cities I really like. I've always liked. God, you kind of got me stumped. right here. And so you know what? Charleston, West Virginia keeps popping in my head for some reason, and that's because I've wrestled Abdul the Butcher over there, and I got to wrestle Jackie Numazawa over there. I mean, and every time I was there, the fans there were really really cool, and we got to hang out, and they had a little after party there at this nice cool bar. It was a good time. So I mean, Charleston, I really enjoyed the fans there. So
When you wrestled Abdullah, did he use the fork?
broken glass bottle.
Oh, okay. I was curious about it. He always had that fork on him, so that's
Yeah.
still cool to have an opportunity to work with
And we,
somebody.
yeah, we didn't even get in the ring.
I don't think there were very few times in Abdullah's career that he spent a lot of time in the ring, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, Lane, this is
Um,
my favorite part of the episode, man. Plug your stuff. Tell everybody where to find you, what you've got going on, anything you've got coming up that's pertinent.
okay, well, yeah. Hey, y'all can find me on Twitter at the Psychedelphic. You can find me on Instagram, Insane Lane underscore IG. What's that thing called? Facebook, Mental Messiah. All one word. I have merch. You can go to Deathmatch Worldwide. Go find Insane Lane down there. Go pick you out a shirt, please. My son wants some more Christmas presents. I also have other merch at dieharddesigns.com. You can check out there. They've got exclusive only shirts you can get there, including Ultraviolent Dad. Um, 2023. This will be my last year. So, as an active profession, actively seeking bookings, I will be doing so. Let's make this count, and I will be looking forward to seeing you all next year.
Lane, I appreciate you stopping by and chatting about some wrestling with me, brother.
Appreciate it. Well, you have a good night, man.
You as well. For the Mental Messiah, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.